Good evening, visitors, and welcome to the Australian War Memorial's last post ceremony. My name is Jared Pratt, and joining us today from the Australian Army is Private Rima Boss. We welcome the veterans who have served, those who are still serving, and the families that love and support them. The live stream of this ceremony is made possible by the Returned and Services League of Australia and the RSL and Services Clubs Association. We welcome members who are watching the broadcast of this ceremony across Australia. During this evening's ceremony, wreaths will be laid at the base of the pool of reflection by visitors to the memorial and students on behalf of Corran State School, Corran, Queensland, and Canberra State School, Canberra, Queensland. If you're able, please stand and join in singing the national anthem.
Australians, oh, let us rejoice, for we are one and free. We've golden soil and wealth for toil, our home is got by sea. Our land abounds in nature's gifts of beauty, rich and rare. In history's page, let every stage advance Australia there. In joyful strains, then let us sing, advance Australia there.
If able, please be seated. The Australian War Memorial was the vision of Charles Bean, Australia's First World War official historian. Bean landed with the Australian troops on Gallipoli, and we remained with them at the front through until the end of the war. The idea of this national memorial and museum came to him at Pozières, France, in the depths of the bloody fighting of 1916. Bean's idea was that this would be a place where families and friends could mourn loved ones buried in faraway places. It would also be a place that could help all Australians understand what these men and women had endured and what they had done for us. Bean's vision, to which we remain true, is best expressed as inscribed in the entrance to the memorial's galleries. Here is their spirit, in the heart of the land they loved, and here we guard the record which they themselves made. Tonight, we will read the story behind just one of those on the Roll of Honour, which lists the names of more than 103,000 men and women who have given their lives for us in war and on operations for more than a century. But first, we present a lament, Flowers of the Forest. Wreaths of floral tributes will now be laid at the base of the pool of reflection.
Today, we remember and pay tribute to Warrant Officer Class 2, Charles Richard Benson, who was killed during the Second World War. Charles Benson was born on the 15th of November 1898 in the English town of Bath. One of 7 children born to Saury Brownlow Benson, a reverend, and Nellie Sangster Benson. In 1922, when he was around 24 years old, he emigrated by himself to Australia and arrived in Melbourne on the 28th of December. In 1938, Benson married Henrietta Stanton, and they settled in Wootong Vale near Coleraine, Victoria, where he worked as a stockman. Benson had already served 1 year at the Royal Military College and 5 years commissioned in the Indian Army when he enlisted in the 2nd Australian Imperial Force on the 22nd of May 1940. He gave his year of birth as 1900 in order to seem to be less than 40 years of age. He was taken on strength at the Red Bank Reinforcement Depot in Caulfield in Melbourne. In July, he was attached to the newly raised 2nd 22nd Battalion, which began training in Victoria, when he was promoted to sergeant and then warrant officer. In October, the battalion marched 235 kilometres to Boginia, near Wodonga, on the border with New South Wales, for further training before they entrained to Sydney. On the 17th of April 1941, Benson embarked with his unit for Rabaul, New Britain, arriving on the 26th. The 2nd 22nd Battalion joined various other Australian and local units to form Lark Force. Its role was to protect the airfields at Lakunai and Vanuatu and the seaplane base at Rabaul, and to provide early warning of Japanese movements through the islands. Like other forces in New Britain, it was ill-equipped. Nevertheless, the 2nd 22nd spent the next months constructing defences and training for operation in a tropical environment. In January 1942, Japanese air forces began bombing New Britain. The airstrips were destroyed, and on the 23rd, enemy forces landed on Rabaul. They overwhelmed the Australian defence. Many were killed. And though 400 members of Lark Force managed to escape to Australia, 836 were captured. Among those taken prisoner was Warrant Officer Charles Benson. On the 22nd of June 1942, Benson and hundreds of civilians and military prisoners were loaded aboard the transport ship Montevideo Maru. It was to be sailed to Hannon Island, where its prisoners would be forced into labour. On the 1st of July, however, the ship came within range of an American submarine, USS Sturgeon. Unaware that the ship was transporting Allied prisoners, the submarine torpedoed the Montevideo Maru. All of its 1,053 prisoners and civilian internees, including Charles Benson, perished in the sinking. He was 43 years old. Despite efforts made by both the International Red Cross and the Australian government, the families of these men were not informed of the fate of their sons until October 1945. Warrant Officer Class 2, Charles Richard Benson, is listed on the Roll of Honour on my left. Among almost 40,000 Australians who died while serving in the Second World War. His photograph is displayed by the pool of reflection. This is but one of the many stories of service and sacrifice told here at the Australian War Memorial. We now remember Warrant Officer Class 2, Charles Richard Benson, who gave his life for us, for our freedoms, and in the hope of a better world.
If able, please stand for the reading of the ode and the sounding of the last post.
They shall grow not old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun and in the morning, we will remember them.
We will remember them.
Lest we forget.
Lest we forget. We leave you this evening with the words of the memorial's founder, Charles Bean. Many a man lying out there at Poziere or in the low scrub at Gallipoli with his poor, tired senses barely working through the fever of his brain has thought in his last moments, well, it's over. But in Australia, they will be proud of this. Ladies and gentlemen, girls and boys, that concludes the last post ceremony. On behalf of the Director, staff and volunteers, thank you for visiting the Australian War Memorial today and for your continued support during the Memorial's development project. We wish you all a very pleasant evening. Thank you.